Gatorade.
I downloaded it on February 18th.
February 18th.
Oh,
Call the Willmar City Council meeting for Monday, March 2nd. To order, roll call.
Mayor Calvin.
Here.
Councilmember Fagerly. Meske.
Here.
Schwantes. Here. Davis. Here. Alvarado.
Here.
Osmus. Here. Plowman.
Here.
Nelson. Here. 9 present, 0 absent.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I've been absent at the last 2 meetings, and prior to the meeting, I thanked Councilmember Fagerly for sitting in as the Mayor Pro Tem. And I'd like to just publicly thank him as well for running the meetings during my absence. With that, are there any proposed additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? I would like to add item number 20, which is a Speak Your Peace project. And I'll explain it at the time. This is something that was presented to council over 10 years ago. But there are community members that have asked this to come back to the council. And Mr. Gramitz, the city administrator, and myself have met with those individuals. And I'd like to just explain that a little bit and then see what the council wishes to do. With that one addition, is there any other additions or deletions to the agenda as presented?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those. You right, yea, right? Okay. That motion passes. Next are consent items. City Clerk Thompson. Got to get back on the horse here.
On tonight's consent agenda, we have for council's approval, the city council minutes of February 18th, Willmar Municipal Utilities Board minutes of February 21st, Planning Commission minutes of February 19th, Park and Rec Board minutes of February 19th, Paffrath Flats Addition Minor Subdivision, the Accounts Payable Report for February 13th through the 26th. For council's acceptance, the Human Rights Commission minutes of December 17th, 2019, the Willmar Lakes Area Convention and Visitors Bureau Board minutes of January 21, and for council's information, the Main Street Board minutes of February 18.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent items as presented. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Schwantes. Aye. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That passes. Next, we have the introduction of new employees, our Fire Chief, Chief Hansen.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, tonight I'd like to introduce some new employees of the fire department. First of all, we're going to start out with the firefighters that are here. Jaden Holmquist, come on, stand up. Eli Quinleman, Steve Moraz, Jose Vasquez, and Michael Stark. They started back in September. September to October kind of staggered them out a little bit. The reason they haven't been here prior to tonight is because they've been spending Monday nights up in New London doing all of their training. They have completed 144 hours of basic firefighting hazardous materials training and have very recently been state certified in all of that stuff. So we're excited to have these 5 on. Brings a big boost to our department, and they're very hard workers and excited to be here. So,
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate that. You know, Chief Hansen, at this point, I always have to give my little spiel about the fire service. And, you know, I just want to thank you guys for giving of your time because I've spent a little time in the fire service, so I'm pretty aware of what you guys are about to go through and what you have gone through just recently. And one of the things that you probably don't know, unless Chief Hansen has shared this with you, is that you save our taxpayers about $56,000 a year for each one of you. And having a paid-on-call fire department is a very beneficial to the city of Willmar and is a huge savings to our taxpayers, because if we didn't have a paid-on-call fire department, we'd have to have a full-time fire department, and that cost would go up dramatically. So thank you for your service, thank you for your family, and thank you for the opportunities that you're going to be able to put your skills into good use, and welcome aboard. It's going to be a fun ride. So I can speak from a little bit of experience with that. So thank you again very much. So Chief Hansen.
In addition to the 5 firefighters, I'm excited to announce our deputy fire chief. As you guys know, it's been in the works basically since about 2005, on and off. And I am proud to introduce Matt Grave as our fire chief. Matt came here from Redwood Falls. He spent 20 years down there on the fire department, was fire chief down there, moved up here with his family, about 2.5 years ago, somewhere in there. And we hired him as a firefighter at that time. Most recently, he's been the training coordinator out at Ridgewater College for the fire program. So we were able to grab him from there and bring him into our department. It would fit him perfect with this position. So, Matt, if you want to come up and say some words.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'd like to thank you for the trust you've given in me to take on this position. I'm very excited about some of the things that I'm looking at bringing in for training and pub ed. So I just want to say thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Like Chief Hansen had said, this position's been in the works for a long time, and so it's nice to see the position finally filled. And thank you to the Labor Committee for all the work you put in on making that happen, but also to the entire council for approving the positions in the budget this year. So you guys are certainly welcome to stick around and see all the fun if you wish, but if you wish to leave, you can do that as well. And I'll leave that up to your chief to decide what you guys would like to do. So I think he's going to probably give you the nod and say, get out of here before you see what happens.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Next, we'll have a public hearing for the 2020 street and other improvements. And I'll open the public hearing at this time and call on Mr. Sean Christensen, our Public Works Director.
Thank you, mayors and members of the council. We had a little bit of a hiccup getting here without a jump drive that has the information on it, so I don't have it on your laptop or on your tablets. I'm hopeful that Cody can get it zoomed in. I'll pause a little bit, get it on my tablet here to get it transferred over. I will get it to all of you as soon as tomorrow. I'll get that document to everybody. That being said, tonight opens our 2020 street and other improvement public hearing. And of course, on March 2nd of 2020. Position of the city is to seek.
Slide your tablet over.
Oh,
Other way.
how about that?
Thank you.
There. Thanks, Cody. It's a position of the city of Willmar to seek the input of all interested citizens and or affected members of the public in the city's decision-making process, specifically for the improvement projects for the 2020 construction season. Purpose of this hearing, of course, is to review and explain the proposed improvements and then an estimated cost, as well as obtain interest and input from interested people or public from the audience. The agenda, of course, has been opened by Mayor Calvin. My name is Sean Christensen. I'll be explaining the projects and the estimated costs, and then we'll have the mayor will open for public comment, and then we can close the hearing after that point. Scope of my presentation, as well as the projects, will be, of course, reconstruction, overlays, and then miscellaneous projects, of which there are not very many different types of miscellaneous projects this year, but there are a few. This slide might be kind of hard to see, but the intent of this slide is to show the improvement area that these projects take place, and it also describes that they're on the right side. So for under reconstruction, the proposal is to do 9th Street Southeast, and that's Pleasant View Drive to Willmar Avenue, 6th Street Northeast from 23rd Avenue to 26th Avenue, and then a short section of 23rd Avenue which is from 6th Street to Country Club Drive. Overlays would be First Street South, a portion of the south portion of First Street, as well as the final lift on Civic Center Drive, which we did last year. And then this federal path that we've had in the works for 4 or 5 years is under TAP funds. And that's federal money, which is why it's taken so long to get to this point. And you'll see in some cases, some publications will have this 2017 project number. And that's along Lakeland Drive, basically from the new school, Olena Drive, or Olena Avenue, up to the highway, and then east along Highway 12 to 23rd, which is the Casey's and Convention Center intersection. Typically under a reconstruction, we remove the bituminous pavement that's out there. We remove and replace curb and gutter as needed. In most cases, it's a majority, if not all of that. And looking at you, Mr. Meskey. Utilities as needed, storm sewer improvements as needed, grading, gravel-based, tile and tile services, and then we finalize all that with bituminous paving and turf reestablishment. So under the 2020 reconstruct projects this year, as I mentioned, 6th Street Northeast, and that's from 23rd Avenue, which is up by the golf course, to Country Club Drive. 6th Street Northeast is from 23rd Avenue to 26th Avenue. And the length of this is just right around a quarter mile. The original construction was in 1989. And current section is 6 inches of aggregate base and 4 inches of bituminous. And most of you are aware of the rating system, the PCI, the Pavement Condition Index. And the rating of this street is 55 to 60. Proposed section for all reconstruct is 12 inches of select granular material, 6 inches of gravel, 4 inches of bituminous. And then, as mentioned, geotech as needed, remove and replace curb and gutter, new water, new sewer, new storm, and new catch basins. 9th Street Southeast, and I've got this in 2 different slides. It's 2 different sections and made it fit on the page easier. We're going from Willmar Avenue. The first slide is to 14th Avenue, and then the second slide, or second half of the slide rather, is from 14th Avenue to Pleasant View Drive. And again, it's just over 1,000 feet combined, it's about 2,200 feet, not quite a half mile of road. Again, the proposed section is a 12-inch base and gravel, and then a 4-inch bituminous. The rating on this one was 25, and if any of you have driven on that section, and I know at least one council member drives it daily, that might be a gift in some areas of that 25 to 50 rating. So that's the 2 major reconstructs. Next we move on into overlays, and typical overlay is to remove, we'll mill 1.5 inches, although in some cases if it's heavily traveled or we warrant the need for it, we'll mill off 3 inches. Remove and replace curb and gutter as needed in this section. And then we correct damaged areas by digging out and replacing some additional pavement in that section, and then we replace that 1.5 or 3 inches of bituminous paving. The big overlay project, well, they're both actually fairly large this year. Civic Center Drive, and I know what most of you are thinking, didn't we just do that last year? Yes, we did, but this is the final lift on that section of road. That was one of those that we milled at least 3, if not more than 3 inches on that section last year. And we need to put the final lift on that section of Civic Center Drive. I won't go into very many details on that one history-wise unless someone asks for those. But the history of that street is quite interesting, to say the least. But it's 1.25 miles in length, and the original construction was in 1978. We're going to start our phased approach to First Street. On the south end of First Street is our first section, approximately 600 feet south of 28th Avenue, and that goes up to 19th Avenue. So from 19th Avenue south is the easiest way to describe it to the Menards and Home Depot Runnings intersection is that section that we're going to do this year, and it's about 1/2 mile. The rating on that is an 80, which puts it right in the correct category for an overlay, and the plan or the proposal there is to mill 3 inches and pave back that 3 inches to get a good base Most of First Street has a concrete base under 3 to 6 inches of pavement. And so the base is really good in most of that section of First Street. And so this would be replacing the surface and then restriping that. Miscellaneous projects, we've got the path project as mentioned. We've got some parking lot improvements that are listed in here. They're not accessible, but they are listed in our bond projects. We're going to look at the West Highway 12 water main project, and that's going to look like it's going to be in conjunction with the Willmar Y project. And then Sperryville Park, we're going to remove and replace some parking lot there to go with our new pickleball courts. The path project, as mentioned, goes from Lakeland School or Olena Avenue to Trunk Highway 12, and then east along Trunk Highway 12 to 23rd Street Northeast. And that is going to be a combination of 8 and 10-foot path, concrete and bituminous. It's federally funded, and so we have to follow some different rules, which is also why it's been delayed as long as it has, because their fiscal year didn't start. The money wasn't available until October of 19. Couple pictures of that project. The length is combined length. Looks like it's about just over a mile, and so we're gonna drastically improve that section. Some of you may be aware that we originally had planned years and years ago to put some of this path on the west side of Lakeland Drive and then some on the east. This one is being proposed and designed to be 100% on the east side, so we don't have to cross Lakeland Drive. And then on the south side of Trunk Highway 12, so that we don't have to cross Trunk Highway 12. Project schedule improvement hearing is tonight, as most of you that are here are aware. We're going to plan on advertising for bids on the 23rd, open bids April 6th, and have the assessment hearing May 18th right here in this room, and award the bids. Actually, we plan on awarding bids right before that assessment hearing so that we know the actual dollar amounts. In most cases, we'll try to begin this construction in the June timeframe and end construction in October of this year, outside of the second year final lift as we do on a lot of our major depth of construction projects. Estimated total cost, and this may look a little shocking, but you got to add the 1.3 million of the miscellaneous projects that I mentioned. We've got just under 2.8 million of reconstruct. We've got just over 2 million of overlay projects, and then, as I mentioned, 1.3 million of miscellaneous projects for an estimated total cost of just under 6.2 million in total construction. Schedule as assessments go, of course, reminder notice will go out in September. Full payment without interest is of October 31st. Partial repayments are allowed by or before that time, and then your first payment would be due May 15th, and prepayments are allowed of $1,500 or more before November 15th. All this information, by the way, can be obtained by contacting the clerk's office, and she's got the schedule of that as well. That is your hearing, Mayor and members of the council. I've got some frequently asked questions or commonly asked questions I can go through now, or we can wait till after the public. It's your choice.
Why don't we wait with those until after the, on that. I just have one question. What is the cost per foot on the reconstruct and on the,
The assessable cost per foot or the construction cost per foot?
the accessible cost per foot?
Accessible cost per foot, of course, is yet to be determined, but the last couple of years, we'll know that more after the bids are in. But it's been in the $85 per foot range for reconstruct, and in the $45 per foot, per lineal foot on the overlay range.
Right. And you're not anticipating any change in that this year, per se?
I'm not anticipating any change. It will, a lot
It
of.
all depends on the bids, I know.
Yep, but I'm anticipating it being pretty close to that range, yes, sir.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, and at this point, we'll open it to the public for comments, and I will take them by project. And so if you wish to speak to that project, just make it known that you wish to speak to that project either by raising your hand or getting my attention somehow, preferably not throwing your shoe at me, and we'll kind of take it from there. So first is on the 9th Street Southeast, the rebuild of reconstruct of 9th Street Southeast. If you wish to speak to that, please make it known. Go ahead and come to the podium. You'll need to state your name, your address, and then state your question.
Byron Watkins, I'm 1312 Southeast 9th. I was just curious, are they going to reconstruct it the way it is? Because that street has no curb, gutter, or sidewalk. Is that something that's in the plans? Probably not, but I was just looking for more information.
We'll have Mr. Christensen answer that question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
So,
Is it going to be done as is, or is it going to have curb and gutter?
9th Street Southeast has no curb, gutter, or sidewalks. Is that the way it's reconstructed?
Thanks for the question. There's sidewalks, if you don't currently have sidewalks, there will not be sidewalks put in or added in. My intention is to be curb and gutter the entire length, and I thought that it was. If it's not, we'll have to look at that.
There's curb and gutter out there, but it's
Well,
weaker.
There's curb partway down to the hill. After that, it's just that little flat piece out there.
The intention, the design right now is set up to be a full curb, and then we'd have driveway cuts for the existing driveways.
So that'd be a D curb?
Yes.
So-
Yep, yeah, vertical curb, stand-up curb, D curb, 624, there's a bunch of different names for it, but yes, it'd be a full curb and gutter, and then with drive approach, or drive cuts for your drives.
Okay, go ahead.
Steve Doles, 1625 9th Street Southeast. My question was, was there a hydraulic analysis done as far as the storm sewer to see if, because I noticed there's a lot of flooding in that ditch, and are the pipes going to be upsized? I was in your office last week and I talked to, is it Corey there? He showed me some of the storm sewer changes, but
Tyler, probably.
Tyler,
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
okay, so, but I was just wondering if you guys did a hydraulic analysis, and then, that's one question.
Okay, yeah, we're doing an analysis on that, or we did an
Okay.
analysis, and then we're actually adding some catch basins, we're adding some pipe, and then sizes as needed.
Okay.
So hoping to alleviate some of
So
those.
downstream, if it ever improves, it'll take that extra water?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, my other question was, so how do you make the decision between a reconstruct and overlay? As far as doing the underground utilities?
So a lot of the decisions are based on the utilities, right? If the utilities need to be reconstructed anyway, then we're already digging them up to do those. And so the age on these utilities is quite significant, and so they need to be replaced. The other thing is the pavement condition index, and so
Yeah.
when we do a pavement condition and the base, based on the history of what that street
So the
looks like.
base is just shot?
Yeah.
And you can't, okay.
We can't just do the surface because you'll end up in the same area here in a couple of years.
And the utilities are at that age where you feel that they have to be replaced even though you're not having any problems with them?
It is because with these designs and the way I've got a pavement management system set up, we're hoping to get 50 to 60 years out of a street. And so if the utilities are already 50 to 60 years old, they're not going to last 100 years. So
And I think, how far back do you go, like, into each person's driveway as far as cutting their
Right.
street or?
we try to go to what makes the most sense. If there's already a joint there, we'll try to match
Okay.
that joint, especially if the concrete's good. We won't go past the right of way.
Okay.
Like, extenuating circumstances, but we wouldn't be allowed basically to go past the right of way. And so all of our work is done within the right of way. We try to make a good joint so that you don't have a 6-inch panel or something along those lines. We'll try to make a good logical decision at that point where to tie that in.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thanks.
Additional comments?
Janelle Hansen, 901 14th Avenue Southeast. So I'm right on the corner of 9th and 14th. This is my first assessment. So since I'm a corner lot, my driveway is on 9th Street, on 14th Avenue. So I do not have home access on 9th Street. Does that affect me and will I be assessed for that street as well since I do not have access to that?
What's your address?
901 14th Avenue Southeast. I'm the corner house.
It generally is the address side, so you shouldn't be assessed because it goes by your address side. So whatever your address side is the side you're assessed on. when the street gets done in front of your address, then your neighbors wouldn't be assessed because it's 14th, so.
Which that already has been done.
Sure.
So 14th was done.
Right, so
Good thing.
if it's the address side is what we assess.
Okay. My second question is, right at my corner, there is a drain, and it is a pool. It doesn't drain all the water runoff from the street, just sits there in the summer. It's a smelly mess. In the winter, it's ice. So with this reconstruct, is that going to be taken into consideration and reconstructed as well?
The drain, is it on 14th Street or is it on 9th Street?
9th Street.
If it's on 9th, it will be taken care of.
Okay, so we'll more
Correct.
effectively drain.
That's,
Okay.
that's the plan.
Fabulous. My final question is, 9th is like a runway. People drive like craziness. So a concern aspect of reconstructing this is that it's going to be a racetrack. So is there any way that we can make it more safe? There's a lot of families on that road, a lot of little kids, but it's the only through street that goes from Willmar Avenue all the way over to 19th. So I'm presenting a safety concern because even now, as awful as the road is, people drive like maniacs through there. I had a dog that was killed. Thank God it wasn't one of my kids, but it's a safety concern. So is there anything that we can do that would allow some sort of measures for safety?
Staff will take a look at that. Generally, when those safety concerns come up, it goes through the Public Works Public Safety Committee. And so Mr. Christensen will make sure that your concerns are addressed. Well, and there's not a whole lot we can do, but they'll look and see if there's anything they can do.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much.
You bet, thank you. Anybody else for 9th Street Southeast?
Hi, Aaron Minnick, 1212 9th Street Southeast. And just a couple of questions. Since my wife and I operate a daycare business on that street, and, you know, it has been in need of repair for a long time. And I understand, you know, that's going to be fine. Our concern is you know, the length of outage. How, you know, do you have proposed start date? I know you're kind of early in the process, but do you have proposed start dates? Kind of a, we're trying to assess a game plan as far as trying to figure out, you know, how to communicate that with people who are trying to get in and out of our place on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks, Aaron. And as you said, I don't have an exact start date at this time. We'll know more of that when the bids come in. What we can do is note the daycare in the area. We can make sure that everybody has access as much as possible. Obviously, there is going to be some inconvenience, and, you know, I apologize for that in advance. But the idea is to get in and get out as most efficiently as possible. We're tweaking the specs a little bit this year as far as time frames and things of that nature. So I'm hopeful that we can allow as much access as possible, and then extenuating circumstances, definitely we can work with people on that.
Aaron, one of the things that the city administrator and I talked about after the last construction season was tightening up that time frame and ways we can do that. And I think that you just heard the city engineer say that is what he's looking at doing. The other thing, as you know, is that we need emergency services access. And so we try to make sure that those roads are accessible for emergency services. And I know they also try to make sure that you can get in and out at least every night. So sometimes that becomes problematic with weather, but they do the best they can. And I know Mr. Christensen will make note of that and make sure that they have that on the agenda. So thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think, Mayor, you might have answered my question already. I live on Pleasantview Drive, but I'm getting this sent to me. So it is your address then, I'm understanding. Okay, so I probably shouldn't have got this then?
It could be a notification so you're aware that work's going to be done.
Okay,
Sure.
all right. So the assessment shouldn't be for me on 9th Street, but my driveway goes on 9th Street, but my address is Pleasantview Drive.
Sure. It's
Okay.
It's the address side in,
Yeah, my sewer and water comes in on that side too.
sure, and that's.
I know this, it says original construction, But this road was reconstructed in about 1990, and it didn't seem to last.
Well, I think that's what Mr. Christensen had stated earlier.
There's definitely water problems. I don't know. It just, that, when it was reconstructed in around early 90s, I was living there, and I know it didn't last very long. You know, it was like it had too much water underneath, and it just all busted up within 10 years.
And Mr. Christensen's aware of that.
Okay.
And so we're doing the streets differently than we did then. And so that change happened probably late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Where we started reconstructing differently. And so I think we're hopeful you'll see a better
And
product.
I think, yeah, somewhere in there, Munson did some work in there too, patches, and them are holding up pretty good.
That was
Them patches.
That was after 2000.
Yeah, that they did, some pretty big patches. I think a part of it was they put the blacktop in thicker, you know, where they patched. Yeah, Munson did, yeah. But, so I guess that's my question, should be answered there then, on that, you know, I'm guessing they just sent me this then so I was aware of the project then. Okay.
We don't like surprises. We'd rather notify too many than not enough. That happened last year. We didn't notify quite enough, so, or maybe it was 2 years ago, one time, a couple years. Anybody else for 9th Street Southeast?
Can I ask?
Councilmember Nelson has a comment that she wishes to make as a citizen.
Do you want me to go to the, or can I stay here?
You can
Okay.
stay there.
Audrey Nelson, I live at 1509 9th Street Southeast. The concern that I have is I know you're working on drainage, additional drainage, because there are no drains from Pleasant View Drive until almost close to 14th Avenue, and I know you're working on that. But the concern I have is the drainage between 9th Street and 10th Street as you get into the middle. There have been a lot of people, we've lived there since 1981, and there's been a lot of people who've hauled fill in the backyards, and all it's done is move the water around. And out there are also some sump hole drains, or people have drains on their property at different location, and, or run their sump pumps to the back and literally flood the yards back there. And so I'm curious with the drainage that's being worked on for the street, is there something that can be done to make sure that the drainage is taking place between 9th Street and 10th Street?
We can take a look at that. We haven't, of course, designed anything east of 9th Street, but we are drastically improving and increasing the storm drainage and the sump drainage on 9th Street itself. We're adding tile drains along the back of the curb so that people can add their sumps into that tile for those along 9th Street. Those along 10th, if they're putting them in their backyards, we'll have to look at those individually.
So I visited with a neighbor who shared with me that there's literally, I think it's a couple houses over from ours, that literally has created some almost storm drains or something in his yard in the back and is literally pumping water. I've not seen those, but I think it merits looking at, because just moving the water from 9th Street is not going to solve the problem of the drainage in the backyard. So that was a question for me.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else for 9th Street Southeast?
Isn't there a
Come to that.
Isn't there a drain in the back of your yard
No,
that goes to the,
no.
okay, because I
I think
thought,
the neighbor has one, I was told, on the other side of the fence, because I've actually walked over and asked him to put his sump pump on the street because it literally is flooding.
okay,
There was talk at one time about the neighborhood going together to put in a storm drain back there, and that is not, there is nothing back there.
does it like create a pond in the backyard?
Yes,
Should there
because
be one?
Keep
people
your
have
questions
built
coming
in.
to the council as a whole, not to an
Okay,
individual council
sorry.
member.
Okay,
I'll quit.
Because it's not fair to that council member. She is speaking as a citizen, not a.
okay. So the question would be if there is a low spot in her backyard, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Should there be, a drainage structure that would draw that out?
We'll have to look at that a little bit closer. If there are some backyard drains or should be some backyard drains, we'll have to look at that a little closer. It's a kind of a touchy subject, of course, being in somebody's backyard. We can't do that, but we'll have to look at what we can do on a street-wide or global basis to alleviate some of that.
If I can just say one more thing, I actually went to the city a long time ago because the neighbors hauled in so much fill, and it really did change the additional, how it was designed. And so the city was aware that that was going on at the time, and all it's doing is just moving the water from one property to the next when people haul in dirt. And I was basically told to haul in dirt too, which isn't solving the problem. And we literally have a river between ours and the next place if there's water that actually runs out to the street.
Okay.
Can we look at that?
Yep.
Anything else for 9th Street Southeast? Yes, ma'am.
Which that brings up another good point. I know in my neighborhood prior to me moving in, there was flooding issues. The house that I live in did have flooding. Is the reconstruction going to be able to handle if that ever were to happen again? Is that in the future works, or is that something that needs to just be noted? I don't know how that works, but to prevent houses from being flooded, like kind of along the lines that she was saying.
And one of the things we try to do is we try to alleviate the flooding as much as possible. But you need to understand that part of the flood control containment system is the street. So there's a lot of water that can be stored in the street. So a lot of people think that the street should always be dry. Well, that defeats the purpose. So Public Works, I think, is very well aware now of the concern. So I think they'll probably take a look at it. And so they'll certainly look at that. And I think one of the things that may help is when they can drain their sump pumps directly into the tile, like what Mr. Christensen was talking about. So I think that may help a little bit as well. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We actually do have tile already, but there are times when water is coming up out of the tile. We don't have ours, we run it into it, it's not hard into it. And we've literally had water come up out of the sump hole drains when there's been a lot of water. And I know that that's because the ditch is full and it's backing up, is that correct?
Correct.
And there, that what you're proposing would be changing that also, correct?
This project does not change the ditch, but on separate projects, we have cleaned the ditch over the course of the years. And then there's some stormwater sales tax funds that will hopefully alleviate some of that as well. There's a project that I'm proposing for that as well, so.
Is there comments for 9th Street Southeast?
My comment would be that the only way to get rid of that problem, because the water table and the ditch that goes behind us down past Walmart is if they lower Wakanga, which they're talking about lowering that a foot or two, then that whole ditch could be cleaned up from Wakanga. That would help all kinds of problems in the city. But you don't have any control over that. You can go pull the logs out of the dam.
Yeah, I tried to get the city administrator to do that when he first came, but he was on to me, so he didn't do it. That was a joke, by the way. Okay, anything else for 9th Street Southeast? Next, 6th Street Northwest, reconstruct. Come to the, state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Terry Ponko, and I live at 2300 Country Club Drive. And my concern is for the 6th Street, if you would take a real good look at that as far as the number of drains, because that's right on the edge of town. We have farmland a spit away, and it has a big hill on there. And so when it rains, there's a lot of water that goes down 6th. So if you would just take a look and see if, I think we just need some more drains, that's all. Okay?
Yep, I'll look at it. Thank you. 6th Street Northeast. That completes all of the reconstruct projects. We'll then go, the rebuild projects. Now we'll go to the reconstruct 1st Street South. 19th to 28th. Civic Center Drive, the final lift on Civic Center Drive.
Yeah, I drive that road every day. There's a lot of patches, or a lot of really soft spots. I'm sure you're aware of it, but what do you guys do to take care of that, I guess?
Well, as it kind of goes, it it plays right into our concept of doing it the second year. And so what happens is then we'll cut that out, we'll repair as needed, and then we'll overlay it with one time so that it will be one complete project. And there's a large section, I'm going off memory here, it might be a half mile worth of section that is soft on the eastbound lane that we'll have to cut out and repair.
On the map, Sean, are you doing the part that goes towards MnDOT too? Or,
No.
because I was under the impression that was gonna get done this year. So,
So we're just doing it, civic center.
just what you
Drive.
did last year?
Correct.
So you're not doing that?
No, you're talking to transportation drive?
Transportation?
Yeah, no, we're not doing
So when
that.
is that gonna get done?
We'll have to look at our schedule on that because with that mental health facility or the behavioral health facility there, we'll have to do that after they're done, obviously,
Yeah.
digging
Yeah,
it
they'll be
up.
done
And so
this spring. You know,
it's not on the list right now as far as, I can't tell you exactly when we're doing that, but it will be,
You've driven
it'll
that
be
lane?
coming up. Oh, yeah.
Any additional comments on the reconstructive Civic Center Drive? Mr. Christensen, can we make sure to see if we can get that done prior to school starting again?
I will do my best.
Thank you. The next, we have the path project for the bike path. I will then take it back to a general comment. Does anybody have any general comments from the public that wishes to address the council prior to closing the meeting?
what is the interest rate on the assessment? If
That's
we're,
determined by the rate at the time. So at the time that the bonds are sold, that number will be shared with you.
what's past numbers been? Does anybody know?
About 4%?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, general public, bond rates are, as everybody is well aware, kind of in flux right now, and they are decreasing. So rates would be somewhere between 3% and 4%.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the 5s and 6s recently, have we?
All indications are by the bond market and everything that there would be the Fed fund rates are expected to be decreased this year up to 2 to 3 different times. So it depends on the timing of the issue.
Additional comments? This is for the total project now, not one specific area, anything on the total project. Because once I close it, it comes to the council and we don't open it back up to the public, this meeting.
I can have a comment here with Mr. Christensen on. When they did 9th Street last time, they put tiles in for the sump pumps. And whoever lives on that road probably is aware of that. But a lot of them got left wide open. And I think kids threw rocks in there, leaves went in there, all that kind of stuff, and it plugged them up. So that might be part of the problem where downstream, if I'm up a hill further and I'm pumping my sump pump in and it's going down the street, it's going to come out at somebody else's if it's plugged down there. You know, and I think they did have problems with them freezing, where they weren't deep enough and they were freezing, where you pump your sump pump in. Yeah. So that's something maybe to look at. Don't leave the drains open like they did last time. You know, it was just a tile coming up and they left them wide open, you know.
Staff will take a look at that. Thanks for that concern. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, I'm closing the public hearing and bring it to the council table. Council, what are your wishes?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to address a couple topics. Number one, regarding the topic of the daycare facility. I had some personal experience last year. The daycare facility that I use, their street was under reconstruction. It was towards the end of the season, and I can personally vouch that they had some incredibly difficult working conditions with the weather. But they did, in fact, the contractor did a great job in communicating with our daycare facility. And every single day, it seemed like they took measures and they made moves to make sure that the property was accessible in the evening for the parents picking up and in the mornings. And there wasn't hardly any times at all that I can remember that I had to move just too far. There's maybe a couple days I had to walk across a yard, but that wasn't much of a big deal. They really did go above and beyond, I think, to try to accommodate that. So that built confidence. And then the second would maybe also contain a little bit of a question, specifically regarding drainage. A lot of people have questions and concerns regarding drainage in specific neighborhoods. Mr. Christensen, can you speak to the effectiveness when a street like this is being rebuilt? The concept of as many homes as possible tying their sump pumps into the curb and gutter drain system, as opposed to allowing their sump pumps to discharge out onto the lawns and recirculating the same water over and over and over again. How maybe just one individual house can have minimal impact, but if many homes do that, that can effectively help the drainage of the entire neighborhood. Can you give your thoughts and opinions as to that?
You kind of said them, I think, but Councilmember Plowman, but yeah, you're exactly right. If your sump pump drains immediately outside your house, or a short hose, or into your lawn or front yard, backyard, ultimately it's going to end up back in your sump pump because the water's going to take the easiest route to get to that low spot. Okay, so that being said, you're exactly right. There's a good chance that there are a lot of sump pumps that are simply recycling, if you will, the same water. That's why they pump more often than maybe necessary. If there is a tile drain system behind your curb, it benefits you as well as your neighbors and your neighborhood to tie into that system. It gets it off of the surface, which causes mud and standing water on a street that gets pounded out with street or traffic will damage that street quicker than common. You get that in the tile drain system, it goes into the storm drain system and out and into the ditch system as quick and as efficiently as possible.
Okay, yeah, and I think the best time to do it, just speaking from a public works standpoint, but also just as a citizen who's had to deal with water issues around my home, the time to deal with it is during the reconstruct, because there's all that construction going on. You got the mess, you got the dirt and everything being moved around. That's the time to tie in. And if as many homes do as possible, that can really effectively desaturate those soils in an entire neighborhood and be as effective as it can possibly be.
Councilmember Plowman, last year we had some issues on projects that granted went a little longer than we anticipated, but we had exactly that issue going on. We had some sump pumps that were kept pumping out into their front yard that ended up in the street that we were trying to dry long enough to do the reconstruct on. It was a challenge at best.
Thanks for your work.
Thank you.
Additional comments from council? Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just clarification on 9th Street, it's going to be full curb? It's going to be the raised?
Correct.
Okay, so that might help hold some water.
It will, yes.
Okay. And number 2, our city now belongs to the flood insurance program, so people can get
That's correct.
flood insurance?
I think that's finalized now, so.
Yeah.
I know it was voted on by this body.
If they do have issues or had issues, that's an insurance
available.
policy.
Yep. Now, and that's not through the city, though. That's a
No.
good point. That's a federal program that everyone is allowed to enter into now. Yep.
All right. And then the bike paths, do we have all the right-of-ways for that?
We're going to be within existing right-of-way. We're going to get some construction easements along Lakeland and I think also along the highway, but it's going to be within current right-of-way.
Okay, because we did have some on the west side too.
Correct.
Yeah.
But then we
not
had an
using-
issue with trying to cross, and I didn't want to try to cross
Okay.
Lakeland.
And then Civic Center Drive,
Okay,
it's just an overlay
correct,
right now.
correct.
Now, there's going to be a lot of construction there, hopefully in the next 5 years with the curling center, ball fields, event center.
Right,
What's going to happen in 5 years after
right.
all that traffic.
So most of those utilities, Councilmember Fagerly, will come off of the streets other than Civic Center Drive. So we'll come off of Arena Drive or Transportation Drive, which goes back to one of the members of the public that was wondering when transportation would be done.
Yeah.
If those utilities get tied in, they'll be most likely tied into Arena Drive, which is the little semicircle drive up there just south of Civic Center. And then Transportation Drive is where some of the other utilities are. So
Okay, because there isn't that many properties that we can assess,
correct,
so, okay, just clarification.
correct.
Additional comments from council. Councilman Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to piggyback off of that comment from Councilman Fagerly regarding the local option sales tax projects. It's shaping up to be some really exciting projects out there, but on a very large scale. And so I think the comment was made actually by an engineer somewhere in the process that I do remember that it's actually probably smart for us to wait for additional road construction because there's going to be so much construction equipment moving in and out of that area that does have an impact on your streets and your roadways. So the time to access those utilities is prior to constructing the new street. So it maybe kind of does fit into the timetable quite well. Thanks.
Additional questions? This is a improvement and by city charter requires 7 affirmative votes to move the improvement forward. So the council is aware of that. Roll call.
Councilmember Meske.
Aye.
Schwantes. Aye. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passed. Next is a resolution to approve the plans and specs advertised for bids.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, did you want me to explain that a little bit? Or as per the usual, we're working on plans and specs now. In fact, they're nearing completion, so we can get the bids out as mentioned on the dates earlier. And so the resolution in front of you would be to approve us doing those plans and specs and go out for bid.
Okay. Council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to approve, to have staff prepare the plans and specs and advertise for bids. Discussion. Councilmember Meske.
I'm glad to hear we're talking about making sure we can tighten up those calendars, because I know a couple of those projects, maybe very firsthand, went much, much longer. People are prepared to be inconvenienced, but when it steps over to a burden, that becomes a problem. So I'm glad that we're addressing this, but the contractors also need to know there's an expectation. I understand weather and other things happen, but some of those projects, one in particular hits my mind, went really very long and were very difficult.
Noted.
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes. Aye. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Next is a presentation on the census update by our city clerk, Judy Thompson. For the public, if you wish to stick around and watch the rest of our business, you certainly are welcome to do so. If you wish to leave, that is totally acceptable as well. So, Ms. Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council and the general public. As many of you know, my name is Judy Thompson, and as chairman of the Willmar Complete Count Committee, I'd like to provide some basic information and an update on the upcoming census and things happening in our community. The census happens every 10 years and is a count of every person who lives in the United States and its territories. Beginning March 12th through the 20th, each household will receive an invitation letter in the mail to respond to the census. New this year, every household will have the option to respond online, by phone, or by mail. You can choose the option that works the best for you. The Census Bureau will send up to 3 reminders, and if households still don't reply, a census worker will come to your home beginning in May through the end of July. By completing the census, everyone will be doing their part in how funds are distributed for roads, education, healthcare, Medicare B, energy assistance, and housing, to name a few. For each person completing the census, approximately $2,800 per person per year for the next 10 years is provided to your community. Another important component to the census is to determine the number of congressional seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives and to redraw the boundaries of congressional and state legislative districts. Minnesota currently has 8 seats in the House, but we're at risk of losing one. A complete count gives our state the strongest possible voice in Washington. One important thing to remember is the information is confidential for 72 years. No one can have access to the information. This includes DHS, ICE, FBI, or the CIA. The penalty for unlawful disclosure is a fine of up to $250,000 or imprisonment up to 5 years or both. Some of the things that are and have been happening in our community include various presentations to adult basic ed, ECFE, which is the early childhood, public health, religious organizations, multicultural events, school conferences. We've got several displays at various businesses, daycare centers, interviews with local radio stations and our local television station and the newspaper. We're hoping to have public computers available that can be used at various locations for individuals that do not have access to a computer or would like some assistance in completing the census. If approved, this information will be posted on the city's website, newspaper, and announced in various radio stations once everything has been confirmed with the Census Bureau. And also, anyone can call the city office for a complete listing or schedule if you need to by the end of March. In closing, anyone interested in learning more about the census can watch the videos which are available on RAC TV, the city website, or the 2020 Census Bureau website. The videos are also available in English, Spanish, and Somali. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the members on my current Complete Count Committee for the City of Willmar and Kansas County. They have all worked very hard, and it is very much appreciated. And I'd also like to thank everyone for completing the census and doing their part to ensure community receives the funds and representation that it deserves.
Thank you for your report. Council, do you have any questions? Councilmember Alvarado?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would you repeat that portion talking about the security of the census? Who cannot get this and for how long? Because I believe that's an important educational piece.
That's very important and reassuring to know that all the information that you provide the census is confidential for 72 years. So for most of us, we won't be around, at that time. But even, no one can access the information. And like you said, which agencies cannot. It's the DHS, ICE, FBI, CIA, and even the President of the United States cannot access the information.
The second part is I want to thank you for the energy that you're putting into this, and please express my appreciation to your team, your associates that are working on this diligently. It's a plus for the community. It's a great service, and I appreciate their volunteerism. Thank you.
Thank you.
No comments or questions? Councilmember Davis.
I want to say thank you for all the hard work that you put into this, and also thank you for tomorrow, your work with the polling places, and I'm wondering if you can remind everybody where those places will be.
Sure. We have 11 different facilities. One is the Armory, and that is where the people that formerly voted at the community center, this year they'll be voting at the National Guard Armory, so it's just a little ways up the street. Highland Apartments, Refuge Church, and Refuge Church is a joint polling place. The people that priorly voted at the conference center will now be voting at Refuge Church, and they should use the south entrance in the lower part of Refuge Church. Calvary Lutheran Church, Redeemer Church, St. Mary's Church, Vinci Lutheran Church, the Willmar Education and Arts Center, or WEAC building, the High Rise, Word of Faith Church, and the Rock of Life Church.
Okay, Councilmember Maskey.
I was going to ask the same question.
Additional comments or questions? Ms. Thompson, I'd also like to thank you. As you know, this is very near and dear to me, and you and I have had some spirited discussions over this, so which is very good. When you stepped up and accepted this task, it was not a small feat, and you have performed exceptionally, so thank you very much for that. I know that 10 years ago, our numbers weren't very good, and that's why so much emphasis was placed on Willmar as a regional center. And I think that you, by putting your team together, along with other people that helped you put that team together, really is going to have good results. At least I'm hoping we are. I think the thing that really people need to understand is if you like to be counted or you don't like to be counted, it doesn't make any difference. You need to be counted, and it's your responsibility as a citizen. The other thing is it's $2,880, so it's over $28,000 over a 10-year period per each person that's counted or not counted. And so, one of the things that we as a city have been working at for a long time is getting over the 20,000 mark. Well, had we had a complete count, we probably would have been over the 20,000 10 years ago. But because we didn't have a complete count, I don't remember what the number was, but I believe it was under 60% reporting that we had. And so hopefully we can have higher numbers than that this time around. So thank you for your work. And then also, I was going to ask you about the polling places too, but Councilmember Davis beat me to it. So it was a little disturbing today that we didn't really see or hear too much on the radio about it, about the election tomorrow. I mean, it's the first primary we've had, and but there was not a lot of splash about it. So hopefully tomorrow's paper and JP and others will pick it up tomorrow and really beat the drum so we get people to turn out. So thank you for your work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have Finance Committee report for February 20th. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. The Finance Committee did meet on Thursday, February 20th at the City Office Building. Council members Nelson, Fagerly, Plowman, and Davis were in attendance, along with Finance Director Steve Okens. We did call the meeting to order at 5:15, and there were no public comments, and we had 3 action items. They are all resolutions, and I'll go through the first one, is the East Side Drainage Improvement Budget. Committee received an updated budget for the East Side Drainage Improvement Project. That would include the construction contract for Phase 1, estimated construction costs of Phase 2, engineering service agreements, and contingency estimates. The improvements include the addition of a piped outlet from the stormwater pond to reduce flooding, 2 catch basins at the intersection of 24th and Oxford Drive Southeast, and a storm manhole at the intersection, as well as closing off the existing pipes flowing to the pond. Phase 2 installs an additional storm drain for outfall capacity and redirects existing catch basins into a new outfall, which will further reduce storm flow into private facilities. It was moved and seconded and passed. A resolution was passed to approve the East Side Drainage budget as presented. And I will enter that motion now.
Second.
It was made and seconded to approve East Side Drainage Project number 1902. Discussion. I see on the tab sheet that there's no bond costs, so that's because we're going to pay cash for it. Is that correct?
I would defer to Mr. Okens on that one.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that's correct. It's coming out of the remaining funds from 2019, and there are monies in the 2020 budget for the 66,000.
Okay, just some discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. 8 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. Our next item was the Willmar Main Street budget. The committee was updated on the Willmar Main Street program. The program was first started in April of 2018. Staff created the 2020 budget for the Willmar Main Street Main Street Program, and it has been reviewed and approved by the Willmar Main Street Board on February 18th, 2020, in the amount of $53,000 and would be funded with a city contribution of $32,500, $19,000 in grants, and an anticipated amount of $1,500 in event revenues. It was moved and second to pass a resolution to approve the 2020 Main Street budget, and I will enter that now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the Main Street budget. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
The resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. Our last item was the Willmar Township Fire Contract. The committee received for review a proposed fire agreement with Willmar Township that would run from April 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. Willmar Township is under an annual contract for the Willmar Fire Department services. The statewide formula has been used for decades to calculate the township's cost share proposal and was enclosed with the current numbers. The 2020 budget is estimated to be at $28,408.48 based off from 126 firefighter hours in 2019. It was moved and seconded to pass a resolution to approve the agreement as presented and give the authorization to the mayor and city administrator to sign. And I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve a contract with Willmar Township for fire protection services. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. We did not have any other business, and there was a motion to adjourn at 5:30, and I would enter the minutes now for approval.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion does carry. Next, we have Community Development Committee report from February 24th. Councilmember Fagerly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We met Monday, February 24th at City Hall. Present was myself, Davis, Muskie, and Swantes. Others were Dr. Ramstead, Sarah Swedberg, West Central Tribune, and City Administrator Gramitz. Item 2, public comments. No one was there to speak to us. Item 3 was the Renaissance Zone update. Staff presented preliminary drafts of the 9 applications for the Renaissance Zone incentives for discussion and feedback. Staff had made presentations to the SBA and Vision 2040 Task Force, and the incentive package received a positive opinion from both. The Community Development Department and the EDC staff have received a number of inquiries from a number of developers about this zone and its incentives. Staff again stated the documents presented were first draft applications and requested committee feedback over the next few weeks while the city attorney is in the process of reviewing, editing, and drafting initial ordinances. Questions were asked by the committee. One was for current TIF and abatement districts in Willmar. That was sent out in an email. I believe everyone got that. Another question, will staff develop a scoring guide for evaluation and scoring of applications for the committee, planning commission, and council? And they said yes. Another one was, will current TIF and abatement incentives continue to be available outside the Renaissance Zone? And yes, but that the abatements within the Renaissance Zone will be limited to the stipulated project objectives. Staff also mentioned that the MUC could be a good partner for adding a utility discount after the MUC plant is decommissioned. Finally, there was an update on current projects and that the Quick Trip has brought in plans for the downtown location and should be starting in the very near future. We adjourned the meeting at 6:02, and if there's no questions, I move to file the minutes.
Councilmember Fagerly, if you just note that I was in attendance at that as well, and it was not noted in the minutes that I was there.
I remember you were there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe it was my bald head, maybe I just kind of,
They came a few minutes after.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was there.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Those in favor of filing the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion is carried. Dr. Ramstad, if you could forward that information on the TIF stuff, I did not receive that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next is Labor Relation Committee Report. Councilmember Meske.
Yes, we met on Monday, February 24th, 6:15. Our regular committee attendance was all there. First item on our agenda was a Recreation Department job description change. There's an opportunity with retirement, and now that we've had our new system in place for a while now, we were kind of taking a revisit of this job description. And for this one, I didn't talk to him beforehand, but Rob, I think it might be good because it's your evaluation that is going to support this. If you could maybe talk to a bit of it, but it's in your packet. Recreation assistant is what it's on, and you'll see the strike-through languages and the additional things, but the job description is definitely changing. There are more duties being added that will justify a change in the actual title of the position and a classification of it. Rob, if you could, please.
Mayor, member of the councils, the reason why we did this, I was able to evaluate the position for the last 18 months and just saw that there's some progress that we can make in that position as far as helping out some of our recreation coordinators along with doing the office work with the registrations and everything. We're just so much more technically advanced now, so we can do the social media, and this is what that person can do, help us market some of our programs and activities that we do. With that being said, us being so much online and the tech part of it, it also gives us a chance to enhance some of our programming of having an assistant there as well. So if we have like movies in the park or any type of special events, that person will be able to assist our recreation coordinators as well.
Questions for Rob?
What's the classification change?
On here it is from a 4 to a 5, is that right?
From a 3 to a 4.
Oh, that's right. As you look through the strike, that's correct. They use a template of a different position, and so it is a recreation assistant. To do the comparison, you'll have to compare that one with the leisure services clerk, which is the next one in your packet. So it is taking it from a pay range 3 to a pay range 4. Other questions for Rob? Councilmember Fagerly.
So we're going to have an assistant to help our two coordinators that we have now.
Correct.
And I wonder what the coordinators do, because I don't think we're getting 40 hours a week from both of them. And who's going to run the office then?
This person would still be the front, like the
This is going
office.
to be a glorified clerical person then?
Yep, just to be able to help assist when we have other programs going on.
Okay, well, I can understand that, but the qualifications, you have to have a college degree? So it sounds like you're ready to move this person up to a different level in a short period of time. So I don't know, because she is there now?
No,
Well,
this,
there is someone there.
yes, there's a part-time person that helps out with the marketing and the Facebook and all that.
Okay, and that's probably going to be the same person that's going to get hired for this, which I have no objection to because I heard she's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we need two recreation coordinators. I'm sorry.
Other questions, Councilmember Nelson?
I am curious just with why a bachelor's degree is required for this position.
Rob, if you could.
It feels like that's a different direction than than what's going on in the world. So when you're looking at this being an assistant to the position.
We could definitely change it if you don't feel like a bachelor's degree is required. It would just be nice to have someone that has the education background in this.
Councilmember Nelson?
I don't disagree with education, but there is also, what's the right term for a market experience. And I really question a 4-year degree being required for this position.
We do always put, and I've tried to update all our job descriptions as we go forward, or equivalent experience accepted as well. So it does not require a bachelor's degree, and we'll take equivalent experience into consideration. It's not going to be a disqualifier if you don't have a bachelor's degree.
Other questions on this proposal? Councilmember Fagerly.
Okay. So it says organization relationships supervises none, but then other duties and responsibilities is crossed out, and then they're supposed to supervise 20 plus seasonal and/or part-time employees and volunteers. What is our coordinators doing?
This will be, that's why we removed the word supervise, is they might be directing and managing schedules of part-time employees, like setting up for events and things like that. I don't think it'll happen frequently, but it will happen, so we wanted to mention it. And the performs other duties, I just moved it down to the bottom, just to make it cleaner. That's where we usually have it. So that is still included at the end of the essential functions.
Well, I was hoping for a Class A department, and it sure as heck has not been. You look at the programs that are being offered right now and the brochure sent out, I don't know what they do. You know, they have the wrestling program, but all they do is they take registration. The Takedown Club does everything else. Baseball boosters, they send out all the flyers to the schools. They do the workouts with the kids along with the senior high baseball coach and their players. We had no basketball program. I just shake my head as a person with a degree in it. Wow, it's not what I expected.
I can tell you that we also did plant the seed later in the agenda, but we kind of got forced into the situation where we are doing this as a city and the school district is doing their thing, that we were going to reevaluate how well that is working. And we'll be working towards that. I know Rob has asked me some more questions about what should be included in a kind of report like that. But I think it's probably an opportunity to look back and see how those things are working and how they can be improved. And I don't think that Rob is opposed to anything like that. He's looking to make this better at every step. And I think this position, they view it as a step in that direction. So I think there's more to come in the future as far as the entire structure is concerned. This is this particular position at this time. Additional questions on this position? It did come from the committee as a motion to make those changes, and I'll introduce that motion at this time.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to consider the Recreation Department's job description update. Is there additional discussion on this subject?
Another question.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well, we just had a Park and Rec Board meeting, and this wasn't brought up there, so I don't know. Shouldn't it be there first?
Additional discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Fagerly,
No.
Maskey,
Aye.
Schwantes, Davis,
Aye.
Alvarado,
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
7 ayes, 1 nay.
Motion carries. Councilmember Maskey.
The next item that is on here is addressing department head policy, non-organized employee policy, administrative assistant to the city administrator policy. These have been separate policies that we've had in place to address those entities. However, they have going to be discontinued and folded into our general employee policy, or personnel policy. And so there are 3 major points. The first ones that are in your packet are the actual existing standalone policies that will be eliminated. The changes that are pulled from those, so they all can be under one umbrella, they start in your packet on page 100, if you wanted to turn there. That is having personal days, 2 personal days to the city clerk, accounting coordinator, police department administrative assistant, and then addresses vehicle or phone allowances if those are granted at the time of employment for those positions. So that's on page 100. That is red type for you to see. Page 102, you will find there the chief's clothing allowance language, and that is listed there, because that would have been a separate one. And then I would direct you to page 103 for the sick leave, which takes the ceiling off, which is consistent with those other positions as well. Did I get them all? All right. And so if you have questions over those policies, feel free. Mayor.
Question I have is if they're now a represented group, why isn't the represented group bargaining on their behalf? Why are they coming straight to the council? Because they're a represented group at this point.
Which employees or which group are you referring to?
I'm referring to the city clerk. Didn't you say city clerk? Yep. Because we just accepted that person into the, I don't think we did with the payroll clerk or the, did we with the police department one? So we didn't? Yeah. I mean, if they're already represented, then why are those coming straight to the council?
Those 3 positions are unrepresented positions, the 3 that it references adding a personal day for, or 2 personal days for.
What positions are those again? Could you repeat
The
those?
accounting coordinator, police department administrative assistant, and city clerk. Those were the 3 positions covered under the non-organized employees policy.
Didn't we just allow this, didn't we just approve the last meeting I was at, which was 3 meetings ago? Didn't we just approve that position to go into, be represented?
It was, but it wasn't approved by the union for the city clerk position to be added to the supervisor unit.
It what?
It wasn't approved by the union to add the city clerk to the supervisor unit.
It wasn't?
That's the information that I've got.
The assistant to the city administrator was added to the supervisor unit.
We requested it. I can only go from what I hear is for feedback. But we approved it. We had to go to approve it, put that in there. You are absolutely correct about that. The feedback of whether or not that was approved,
Never
I have
heard
to
it.
go by what I hear. And so if they're not included, then it needs to be addressed here. So I would agree. Perhaps that needs to be clarified. If they actually did approve that position in there, it would seem redundant to put it here and wouldn't give this position an additional benefit that's not provided by their bargaining unit, if that is the case.
Correct. So I know we've discussed several positions.
Councilmember Nelson.
I would request a motion to table and for further clarification on what took place in that information.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to table the subject. All in favor of tabling it, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion carries. Councilmember Meske.
The last one is the travel reimbursement policy. You will find that on page 106 for the change. That is basically clarifying reimbursement for meals when traveling, specifically breakfast and dinner. And it's a matter of when you must leave your home or when you would be arriving back to your house, and that they will be looking closer on your travel time using an online mapping program to make that determination. And this was a motion made in our committee, and so I will introduce it at this time.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to update travel policy. Discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Councilmember Meske.
In addition, the last item where these are all for just discussion pieces we have at the end and expect more of them in the future. Again, I did reference that we were talking about the entire recreation department and how that is working. Also, we are looking for a final wrap-up from Baker Tilly in regards to the city administrator search. We're looking for a report that they might file for us. In addition, we also looked at some succession planning, and we looked at positions such as an assistant city administrator, an assistant finance director. We did have a lengthy conversation about that. We would not be making a recommendation for this year's budget, but there is going to probably be a very strong push for those positions to be established in the following year budget. There was no other information that was shared at the Labor Committee, and so with that, I will file the minutes. I move to make a motion to file the minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to file the minutes as presented. Councilmember Nelson.
Just a concern that before we add those positions, it would feel that it would be good for us to review the organizational chart. And with that, and I would request that that be something that is reviewed by the entire council in some format prior to making those decisions.
And I would add that we actually did have that conversation as well, because it was beyond just talking about it as far as Recreation Department. We said we have an opportunity here to make and cast a broader net with that, and that's when the succession planning piece came up. So duly noted, and that is on our radar screen.
Additional comments or questions? All in favor of filing the minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion does carry. Next, Public Works Safety, Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Public Works Public Safety Committee met Wednesday, February 25th at the conference room in the City Office Building at 4 p.m. Present were members myself, Councilmember Davis, Alvarado, and Nelson. Also in attendance was our City Administrator Gromits, our Public Works Director, Mr. Christensen, our Fire Chief, Chief Hansen, our Public Works Superintendent, Mr. Manzer, and our Engineering Administrative Assistant, Ms. Delbosque. Our police chief had a prior obligation, so he was unable to attend. We called the meeting to order at 4 p.m. There was nobody there present from the public to comment. First we were presented with public safety statistics, and we had, those should be attached to the minutes currently because our chief is not with us tonight. If anybody has questions regarding those, maybe just note them to me and I will bring them to the next meeting. Seeing and hearing none. The fire statistics are also included in here, and now would be the time to ask any questions of our fire chief. Having none, we'll move on to the next item. And that was regarding a shared garden location, and this was for informational purposes. A group has approached city staff about developing a community garden on a city lot. This garden would be open to anyone, and the garden would allow them to plant produce, which would be free to take. Staff found right-of-way along 15th Street Southeast with easy access to a hydrant for the usage of water rather than in a buildable lot, and they feel that this would be a good location. It would provide topsoil and leveling out the surface. And we also discussed the city's ability to have Public Works go in the area and clean up some of the scrub brush and some of the overgrowth in that area, kind of clean up the area. And this is right off just north of 15th, directly west of Giovanni's Pizza. There's some trees and some foliage and whatnot back in there that could use some cleaning up. But this could be another area that would be a good use for a community garden. And they were basically looking for direction. So there was not any formalized action taken, but it was the consensus of the committee that we kind of affirmed that we believe that the idea was good and worth pursuing. So city staff is going to continue negotiations with that group, which is a formalized entity in the city, and they will be bringing that back with further, more detailed plans about exactly what will be happening there. So that will come to a future meeting. Next items up for discussion, and my preamble to these is we had a lot of business, so I appreciate your patience because I'm going to be jumping around here trying to keep these all straight. First one will be regarding Public Works equipment purchases, and these pieces of equipment are specifically vehicles. Public Works Department is, first of all, requesting the purchase of 4 vehicles. I'm going to try to break them up into sections. There will be 1 dump truck that we're discussing. There will be 2 trucks, or pickup trucks rather, and then the 4th item will be a grooming machine for sports fields. The first one, the Public Works Department is requesting to purchase a replacement of a dump truck with snow removal equipment. The truck chassis is proposed to be purchased from Manny International of St. Cloud per Minnesota State Contract Number 124638 in the amount of $94,592. The snow removal equipment for the truck will be purchased from Towmaster Inc. of Litchfield per Minnesota State Contract Number 167105 in the amount of $98,836. This new unit will replace the 2008 International dump truck scheduled for replacement. The timeline on ordering the new truck and outfitting it with the snow removal equipment will have it ready for use in June of 2021, and that is not a typo. It is correct that will not be available until 2021. That is how backed up the entire industry is with regards to trucks and outfitting of those trucks. Once the new truck is finished and delivered, the 2008 unit will be sold. And I would just like to note the financial impact. We had budgeted in the outlay program $220,000 for the purchase of this dump truck. And this total amount that we will be authorizing is in the amount of $193,428, coming in under budget. And I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, to approve purchase of a 2020 International dump truck. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Meske.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next topic, we're going to run it as 2 separate resolutions, but I'm going to discuss them together just for efficiency's sake. Staff is requesting the replacement of 2 2006 GMC trucks in accordance with the 2020 Capital Outlay Program. With both trucks being 14 years old, they are showing wear, with rusting toolboxes, suspension issues, and storage no longer adequate for project demands. One truck is requested to be replaced with a 2020 Silverado from Schwitters in the amount of $38,493, with a topper and toolboxes from Accessories for Trucks in Willmar in the amount of $4,592. Now, please note, this is an amount that is slightly higher by approximately $3,000 than an amount on the state bid for the same or similar Silverado in the amount of $35,680.70 from Saxon Fleet Services. And we can discuss the difference in dollars there after the next bit of notes. The second truck is requested to be replaced with a Ford F-450 from Mills Ford of Willmar in the amount of $39,088, with a service body from North Central Trucks of St. Cloud for $21,781. The state bid that compares to the Ford F-450 is $37,000 from Ford in Hibbing. The 2 trucks, when you add them together, we had a outlined budgeted amount for $104,000. When you add the trucks and the accessories together, you have a total amount of $103,954. And I guess an item that would be discussed or up for discussion after I enter this next motion would be the $3,000 disparity on the first discussed Silverado, and that would be in the amount of $3,000 to purchase the truck locally here in Willmar versus purchasing outside of the city. So, authorizing the motion to purchase a 2020 Chevrolet Silverado in the amount of $38,493 with topper and toolboxes in the amount of $4,592, gathering a total of $43,085. I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. I believe, Councilmember Plowman, you're looking for discussion as to whether it should be purchased locally at an expense greater than $3,000, is that correct?
Correct. I entered the motion so that we could then have discussion. If the council feels that it's not appropriate, then they may certainly bring that up.
Discussion.
Are the local bids sometimes lower than the state bid? Or is this the first time we've encountered this?
Well, they've been both lower and higher.
Yep.
I don't believe that we've seen them this much higher before. I mean, generally, it's been a couple $100.
Okay.
I think when we did it last year, I don't know, someone with better memory than I have could tell you what it was, but it was only a few $100. I think 3,000 is a lot, but it's up to the council.
I mean, because I would love to buy all of our vehicles locally. I think all the contracts that way should be done.
Right.
But I would share your concern as well. It's that these are getting to be larger amounts and that you don't want to see that become sort of the trend.
I do have a question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll direct this to our city administrator. If the council should so choose to amend this motion and purchase, according to the state bid, with the Silverado from Saxon Fleet Services, how would we then handle the purchase of the additional items to accompany the truck? Does anything about that have to change?
You can still do that locally.
No, that wouldn't change because those are separate.
So we can just leave the bids as they are and, okay, so that is one possibility that council is able to do, and that would be, I guess, either amending the motion or making a new motion.
Councilmember Nelson.
We've had this discussion before, and I think there was a suggestion that we purchase local. But I think it deserves clarification of what's local. So are we talking about local within the city of Willmar as far as people who pay taxes, or are we talking about local in our area? Because I think, to support local businesses is I think, a great thing to do. Where's the line with that? I think that's a difficult, but to have a discussion with what merits local is a little subjective also, so.
Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, yes, I think I understand Ms. Nelson's comment, and that is how local is local, because we have various dealerships and whatnot, but their home offices may not be local. Essentially, they may be branches, and so that may be something that we need to more clearly define in the future. I guess, in my personal opinion, I do agree, and I like to, if it's really close, I like to try keep the purchase as local as possible, keep the community dollars bouncing around, because they do employ people here in the community and the money does stay here. However, there does have to be some checks and balances, and that there does have to be some accountability in order to keep them competitive and to keep the taxpayers' money used as wisely as possible.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I think this came to us as a recommendation by staff. Can we just go back to staff with why they chose to recommend this?
I believe staff recommended it because that's the direction, and I'll take responsibility for it because I'm the one that said I really want us to buy local. I think I don't want to shoulder this on the back of staff, because I think staff would tell you they would like to take the low bid, but they want to do what the council wants. So, City Administrator Gramitz.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, I did ask that this be placed on the Finance Committee to actually review the purchasing policy of the City of Willmar as it relates to state statute. And we've incorporated it recently, a couple months ago, by reference. So state statute, I believe it's 471-345, spells out that when cities, counties, and school districts or any other governmental entity is going to purchase equipment that exceeds $25,000 in value, that they are required by this statute to consider the state bid number, and that's why you have it in your packet here, because the only way for you to consider it is actually to know about it. And so that was, in addition, since Public Works had this item go through, because Public Works didn't have that information. So this is my attempt to get that information in front of you so that you have the ability to make an educated decision on this topic. I did have a discussion with the city attorney, and there's no law that says you have to take the lowest bid, but there is a law that says you have to consider the state bid. And if you have a reason that you want to purchase the vehicle locally, for whatever reason that might be, you as a group would need to identify what that reason was. And then you may purchase that vehicle, whether it's on state bid or from a local provider. So that's I think that's the discussion we'll be having more in finance to kind of flesh out what does the city council want us to do? Do you want more consideration for local or not? Because I've heard it, in the council meetings that we want to buy local, but your policy doesn't reflect that. So that puts staff in a precarious situation where if you follow the policy, then when you come and present something to the city council, now you're subjected to, well, how come we're not buying local? Well, your policy doesn't say that. It doesn't set up a structure to follow. So that's what I'm proposing we have a discussion at finance on, is how do we incorporate a easily understandable and followable purchasing policy. So when it comes to the city council, you've got all your information and we can make a recommendation. That makes sense.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Paulman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When it's time to vote for this motion, I'm going to go ahead and vote in the affirmative to go ahead and approve this purchase, even though it is above the amount. This is the recommendation of staff, and they were following the directives that we've given them in the past. It is my hope that we'll review the policy, and if it doesn't pass, then we can go ahead and look at other avenues, but I speak in favor of it.
Yeah, and I mean, so the administrator and I met last week over this after it had been through Public Works. And Public Works, and Mr. Graham is correct me if I'm incorrect here, but they brought the recommendation based on the fact that, the last time they did this, I called it out, and I'm the one that called it out. It was with the police chief on a vehicle he was purchasing. And I said, did we look local? And then the question was, well, we didn't know that was the direction. And so at that time, I'd asked for it to be reviewed by the council. And so that's why I recommended to the administrator again, let's get this in front of the council and actually have the discussion about it. So, I mean, this is $3,000, 10% of the cost. I think like Councilmember Meskey said, when it's a lower number, it's more palatable and it's easier to explain. And I told the administrator this when I met with him last week. I said, I bought all my vehicles local when I was fire chief. I mean, that's just what I did. And if it was over, I said, can you throw in mud flaps? Can you throw in floor liners? Is there something you can do? But it was generally $50 or $100. I mean, not $3,000. I don't think staff really cares where we buy the vehicle. They just want direction. And, I know our staff well enough that they want to save the city money as much as we do. And, we certainly could ask the administrator, but I don't think your staff is going to be upset if we say buy it from Saxon Ford rather than local. And yes, staff was doing what we asked them to do, but as this body, when you meet and you have additional information, which the administrator has forwarded to us tonight, and he forwarded to me last week when this discussion came up, because basically, I'm the one that brought it up, and Councilmember Fagerly, you agreed with what I said. But, now, at this point, we're talking $3,000. So, Councilmember Nelson.
I'll make a motion to table. The Finance Committee is reviewing it. And I don't feel a sense of urgency that this has to be done tonight, so I'll make a motion to table and bring it.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to table. All in favor of tabling, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Councilmember Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, then the discussion regarding the 2020 Ford F-450 in the amount of $39,088 and service body in the amount of $21,781 for a total of $60,869. I will make a motion to authorize that purchase.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to purchase a 2020 Ford F-450 truck. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Final batch in this batch of vehicles, the Public Works infield groomer is up for replacement in the 2020 Capital Outlay Program. The current unit, a Jacobson Groomsmaster, has not been reliable for a number of mechanical reasons and also is not user-friendly. Staff is requesting to replace it with the 2020 Toro Sand Pro 5040 from MTI Distributing in the amount of $29,333.99 through Omnia Partners Purchasing Co-op number 1039140. And I make the motion to authorize the purchase in the amount of $29,333.99.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next topic up for discussion was approving a motion regarding signal system painting to a company called Pole Painting Plus in the amount of $56,025. And this is keeping in accordance with what we had started the last couple years regarding the painting of our signals and our poles and cleaning off the rust and whatnot and going with the black color. They are outlined in the paperwork in front of you. The First Street locations would be First Street and the intersections of Willmar, Candy Ojai, Trot, Litchfield, and Ella Avenue, Highway 71 and Civic Center Drive, Lakeland and Highway 12, 2nd Street and Highway 12, 3rd Street and Highway 12. 2 quotes were received, and the low amount was $56,025. The operating budget for this project was $70,000, so this one also came in under budget. I will enter the motion to award this contract to Pole Painting Plus in the amount of $56,025.
Second.
Made and seconded to enter an agreement with Signal Pole Painting. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Schwantes. Aye. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly. Maskey.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Councilmember Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next one is regarding our Federal Path Project, number 1704/1904, and the Professional Services Amendment. And we have 2 actions to take here. A little bit of background. January 4th, 2016, the City Council adopted resolutions authorizing the submittal of a Transportation Alternatives Program funding application for project number 1704/1904. The project consists of the construction of a 10-foot wide bituminous shared use path from 23rd Street Southeast along the south side of Trunk Highway 12 to West Lakeland Drive, and an 8-foot to 10-foot concrete shared use path from Lakeland Drive to Olena Avenue. On July 28, 2016, the city was awarded $210,000 in designated federal funds for the improvements in fiscal year 2020. An amendment to the professional services agreement with Bolton and Mink is required in order to prepare a state bid or a state aid variance request to allow the 2-foot clear zone requirements to be waived. Completing a hydraulic analysis of Trunk Highway 12 ditch and prepare a report required by MnDOT, prior to approval of the construction plans. Also for preparing documents necessary to obtain a limited use permit from MnDOT to allow the improvements to be constructed within MnDOT right-of-way, and to administer and manage a sub-consultant service of Braun Intertech Corp. For construction materials testing. I believe that's a fancy way of saying soils tests, to the MnDOT Schedule Materials Control, which is also required for federal funding. So, long story short, we will be making a motion to approve Amendment Number 5 to the 2017 Improvement Project Professional Services Agreement with Bolton Mink in the amount of $63,750, and I'll enter that now.
Second.
Motion made second to enter an agreement to an amended agreement for engineering services with Bolton Mink. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
And Schwantes. 7 ayes, 0 nays, and 1
Absent.
absent.
That motion passed, that resolution passes. Councilman Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The second action that we will be taking is to approve the amended preliminary budget for project number 1704/1904, and the amended amount is $158,226, and I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to amend the preliminary budget. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilmember Alman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on, we have some wastewater equipment purchases. The first one is dealing with a 2020 Polaris Ranger XP 1000 from Motorsports of Willmar in the amount of $18,228. The wastewater department is requesting the purchase and replacement of 2 units. The first being the replacement of a 2011 Kubota RTV with a 2020 Polaris Ranger XP. The Kubota has extensive rust and holes in the floor, as well as wearing through the tires more frequently. Unlike the diesel Kubota RTV, the Polaris is a gas unit, which will be quieter to operate and more agile and easier to use. I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to purchase a 2020 Polaris RGR XP 1000. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
Resolution passes. Councilman Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the final purchase that we will be discussing tonight, please bear with me as I get back to it in my notes. But I believe it is yes. Okay, the second unit to be replaced is a 2010 Kubota L5740 tractor. And we're going to be replacing that with a 2020 Bobcat 5600 Tool Cat. The Kubota tractor has reached its useful life and experiences problems with the front hubs, which have been repaired numerous times, and is an expensive fix. Staff would like to replace it with a tool cat, much like the ones that both Public Works and the Civic Center use often. These units are more versatile to use and will allow the 3 departments to share the Bobcat attachments that the Public Works has. We did discuss the specific unit just a little bit more. They're very, very happy. Public Works is very happy with the tool cat units. They're a more expensive unit, but they're pretty rugged, and they do allow for a nice versatile number of attachments and usages. The cost of the 2020 Bobcat 5600 Tool Cat is $35,142.28 and will be purchased from Farm Right Equipment of Willmar. I will enter that motion now.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to purchase a 2020 Bobcat 5600 Tool Cat. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Councilman Plowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just as a final note, I would also like to point out the fact that with all of these vehicle purchases and whatnot, these last two, we had an available $76,742 budgeted, and we are spending $53,370. Difference of about $22,000, almost $23,000. So all those purchases were within budget. And I personally applaud the Public Works Department for doing a great job soliciting bids and quotes. That did end our meeting.
Before you seek approval of the minutes, the meeting was Tuesday, February 25th, and not Wednesday, February 25th, and it's erroneous on the caption. I just thought we should be aware of that.
You are correct. That should be noted and entered into the record. We did meet Tuesday at 4 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. I would move to file the minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to file the minutes. Discussion. We should also note it was a special meeting, not a regular meeting.
That is correct. Yeah, we changed our own times to make it work.
All those in favor of filing the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion does carry. Next, we have City Hall Community Construction Manager at Risk, Mr. Gramitz.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, the process used for the City Hall Construction Manager at Risk firm and the architectural engineering firm was the same as basically we used for the local option sales tax projects. We had 2 members from the City Hall Task Force, 2 members from the Community Center, and 2 staff members score each of the architect engineering firms and score each of the construction manager firms. So we had 2 groups of 6. We selected the top 2 from each category and interviewed subsequently about 2 weeks later the top 2 firms, of which the top construction manager at risk firm and architect engineering services firm were selected and are now presented to the City Council for approval.
So the first resolution is to select RJM Construction as a construction manager at risk.
I will make the motion to select RJM.
Second.
Okay.
Motion been made and seconded to select RJM Construction as construction manager at risk for the construction of the combination City Hall Community Center. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes. Next is a consideration of adopt a resolution to select BKV Group as the architect engineer for the construction of the City Hall Community Center project.
I'll make that motion to select a BKV Group as the architect engineer for the City Hall Community Center project.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Fagerly.
Aye.
Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That resolution passes as well. Next, we have Civic Center Arena Special Event Liquor License. Ms. Thompson.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Glacial Ridge Curling Organization is desiring to hold a 2-day curling bonspiel on March 13th and 14th at the Civic Center, and they plan to serve alcohol. A Civic Center Arena special event permit is required to distribute or consume alcohol on the Civic Center grounds for this event. Queen Bee's Bar and Grill, doing business as Queen Bee's Bar and Grill out of Paynesville, has applied for this permit, and it's staff's recommendation to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the liquor license to Queen Bee's. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilmember Maskey.
Aye.
Schwantes. Davis.
Aye.
Alvarado.
Aye.
Osmus.
Aye.
Plowman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
That motion passes as well. Next, we have council member announcements, and I'll start with Councilmember Davis.
I don't have anything tonight.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to toot our horn for the RAC TV, Channel 189. Live stream is now available on the RAC TV website. There's local programming to watch on your computer, tablet, or phone. Programs include our meetings, city council task force meetings, school board meetings, county board meetings, Willmar Public Library show, community education show, master gardener show, local Willmar census show, local RAC TV shows, and the elementary song fest. And I agree with what the mayor said earlier. Take advantage of your right to vote and participate in the primaries. Thank you.
Councilmember Osmus.
I'll pass.
Councilmember Plowman.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
I'll pass.
Councilmember Fagerly.
I'll pass.
Councilmember Mansky.
I'm going to bring up just one thing, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do teach microbiology at the college, and I field a lot of questions lately about coronavirus. And so I was very pleased today that we got several emails pushed out from the League of Minnesota Cities, from the Minnesota Department of Health, from our city, from the county, that everybody is looking at that. And so if you are concerned, I know a lot of people have questions. We did receive an email today that the Twin Cities PBS is dedicating 30 minutes every day to, or every week, excuse me, to dedicate just to COVID-19. That's the virus, public health concerns, and they begin tomorrow at 8 o'clock on channel 2.1, which is the main PBS, channel 2.5, TPT Now, and their social media platforms. And they're planning to do that every week and give updates. It looks like Minnesota might be ahead of the curve in planning, and I like to think that Willmar is going to be in that same position in Candioi County. So I throw that out as there is some resources and there are things being done here in Minnesota and locally to help mediate any kind of problem that comes from that virus.
Thank you, Councilmember Schwantes. Okay, announcement of community meeting dates, Public Works.
Public Works will be meeting this Wednesday, March 4th at 5 p.m. The agenda is already published.
Finance.
Finance is meeting Thursday, March 5th at 5:15. The only item on there is the city purchasing policy right now.
Thank you for doing that. Community Development.
We are not meeting.
Labor.
There will be no labor meeting March 9th. The next one will be March 23rd.
Okay. At the beginning of the meeting, I had asked to add an item called Speak Your Piece. It's the civility project, and I don't know if Corey can go in on this or not, but this is a project that was brought in front of the council over 10 years ago for consideration. And in light of some of the things that have been happening within the city, I think it's a good idea if the council would take and consider the Speak Your Piece civility project. It's a project that says that we are going to do business a certain way. And we're going to do it in a civil manner, and we're going to do it in a logical manner. And I really want to give kudos to Greg Hilding and Gary Geiger for having brought that to the council. Councilmember Nelson told me before the meeting started that she was also in attendance that evening when it was presented. This is something that I think that as a council, we could show leadership to our community in being forward-thinking. And recently, this was brought to my attention by Vision 2040. And they asked me if we would look at it, and this is probably 3 months ago, they came and asked me that question. And I had run it by the city administrator, and I was going to address it 2 meetings ago. And as an agenda item, so if you notice that the mayor was going to make some comments, that's what that was going to be about. And then I wasn't able to attend that meeting, and the following subsequent meeting, I was also unable to attend. So I'm bringing it up tonight. So there's 2 different ways we can do it, and one of the ways would be is that we could come and have someone from Vision 2040 or Gary Geiger make a formal presentation to us. The other way would be is that they could present during the open forum portion of the meeting, which would give them 3 minutes to speak. I feel this has a lot of value to the city. I feel that it's not that we're not civil and it's not that we're not doing things, but in the last month, I have heard plenty of things being talked about. And I think that if we had this adopted, I think that it would just bode well for the city, and as the council and the mayor, it would show leadership. The thing that I really like about it, well, there's a number of things I like about it, but the one thing that I really like about it is that it gives us as individuals or staff a platform to just hold up your card. If you think that somebody's not saying something they should, just hold your card up. You don't have to say anything, just hold your card up. And then that is a silent way to say to somebody, I'm not sure that you're speaking in the tone that you would really want to be speaking in. And that would then allow us to check our speech and to make it civil. So I'm not saying that we're not civil. I'm not saying that we're argumentative. But I've had a lot of conversations in the last, I said month, but it's probably a month and a half. So I'm looking for some feedback from the council as to whether you think there's value in this, for one thing, but then on the other piece of it is that would you like them, if you think it's a good idea, would you like them to come just as in the 3 minutes, or do you want that to be a presentation? I know that Gary Geiger is very engaged and very welcoming to come back and make another presentation. He's committed to this. Gary and I have had numerous conversations about this, along with Sarah Carlson and Ken Warner as well. The administrator and I attended the Vision 2040 leadership meeting, steering committee meeting, about a month ago, and it was talked about there. And then I was, like I said, I was going to bring it up here, and just things didn't allow them on my side, that I was unable to be here the last two meetings. So discussion is what I'm asking for. Councilmember Eske.
Well, I'd say the majority of us were not here when that presentation was made. So I think I would want to hear about what it is and how it works. I think that we've kind of all agreed that that's kind of in a direction we're going. I don't know if this is the program to use or if it's one of a tool of several. Maybe we're going to have a bigger toolbox. But I think that giving it real time to talk about it is probably better than having to fit them in during an open forum piece. I mean, I think one of those third Mondays might be an appropriate time. I don't know if that's too far off, but.
Next third Mondays are pretty full already. The end of this month, and then we have the consultant coming in June.
Well, with all due respect, we've said we were going to be dedicated to doing things like this, and so if it does require a special session to do that, I think.
Well, I think they could come to the meeting and just present at the meeting to us.
For this particular piece, I'm the first tool of the toolbox, but I would like to accelerate even beyond that, because there could be other programs in addition to that. But I'm totally on board with whatever the first step happens to be.
Okay. And I'm hearing nods, or seeing nods over here as well. I should also mention that before the meeting started, Councilmember Nelson said that she had attended training from the League of Minnesota Cities, and they had talked there, and also Councilmember Davis had attended training by the League of Minnesota Cities within the last couple of months, and they talked about there as well. So Councilmember Nelson.
I'd like to see us add it to the next agenda item. I think that, what they present, we can maybe decide where we're going from there.
Right.
But when I was part of the group that met, I mean, there were a lot of different organizations throughout the city that did adopt it. The council did not at that time, but there is excellent information out there, and I think these pieces came out of Duluth, I believe. And I think they are very good for us to review. So I would encourage to add it onto the agenda and see where we want to go after that. So.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I look at the mission statement and it talks about open, effective, and efficient manner to all citizens, I believe this would really dovetail into that mission statement and make it more efficient for us. So I would agree that we should get it on the agenda sooner than later.
Just Councilmember Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the 3 minutes will not be enough for them. I think it was like 15 minutes the last time they did it.
And we can ask them to tighten it up if they want to.
Not to 3 minutes.
No. Councilmember, City Administrator Grammons.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, for those of you that maybe don't have the information, I can send out tomorrow the link, and that way you have an ability to read a little bit up on it, see what it's like, and have, the ability to ask some questions, given the limited amount of time that they may have. So that would kind of speed up the process.
So for those in the public that wish to go to the site, it's speakyourpeace.org. And you can go onto the site and look at it and do your research. And the cities of Duluth and Superior have both adopted it. And I know the city of Duluth is still using it at their meetings, and they actually have it on the wall in their council chambers. Obviously, we wouldn't do that here, as this is the county chambers. Okay, so I'm seeing agreement to have them come, so Mr. Gramitz, can you get that on an agenda? Let's put it on as the first item on the agenda, so they don't have to sit through a whole lot, unless there's a public hearing. I understand we'd have to move it after that. There's one other thing I need to correct. I received a text during the meeting, and I said that citizens were the only ones that counted for the census. I don't recall saying that. I thought I talked about citizens voting, but someone heard me say that it's citizens count for the census. That is not true. Everybody who resides in the United States is counted. You do not have to be a citizen to be counted. And so if I said that, I misspoke. It was not my intent to do that, because I've been very judicious about making sure we have a good message out there. So if I flawed that message, I apologize. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
We're adjourned.